Hey guys, tonight we're going way, way back, farther than pyramids, farther than Julius Caesar, all the way to a muddy, bustling village where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers cradle the very beginnings of cities, writing, and yes, dental hygiene. You're in ancient Mesopotamia. It's dawn. The air smells faintly of damp clay, goat, and whatever's cooking in that ceramic pot across the alley. A rooster that may or may not belong to you has crowed 4 times too many. And your mouth? Well, let's just say your breath could knock over a zebu. You're lying on a woven mat stuffed with straw, your hair still crusty from yesterday's dust storm. A soft breeze flaps the linen at the window, letting in streaks of gold sunlight, and a very curious beetle. You swat it lazily and sit up, smacking your lips. Whatever you ate last night, probably lentils again, is now fermenting gently between your molars. Your gums feel fuzzy, and your tongue tastes like regret. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. Drop your location in the comments. It helps build our sleepy little history village. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stretch your back, throw a robe over your shoulders, and step out into the street. Barefoot, of course. It's not paved, not even close. Just baked mud, goat tracks, and yesterday's footprints pressed in like the beginning of a very long poem. You walk a few sleepy steps toward the communal water trough, still yawning. A dog sniffs your ankle and decides you're not interesting. There's no Colgate in your village, no toothbrushes, no mint gum. But what you do have, tucked behind a broken pot near your door, is a bundle of twigs. Not just any twigs. These are from the Salvadora persica tree, a regional shrub known for its oddly peppery taste and mild abrasiveness. Modern dentists, by the way, will one day call it the toothbrush tree. You just call it the thing I chew so I don't smell like a dead fish. You pick one up, peel the bark with your fingernail, and fray the end with your teeth until it's soft and brush-like. Then you get to work, gently scrubbing your molars in slow circular motions. You spit discreetly behind a cart. There's no minty foam, no electric whirring, just the meditative rhythm of chew scrub, chew scrub, chew scrub. It's surprisingly soothing. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamians consciously valued oral hygiene for its health benefits, or if they were more focused on aesthetic breath freshening for social purposes, like talking to a priest without being cursed. Either way, you're doing your part. The taste? Earthy, slightly tangy, definitely better than yesterday's onions. Some days you swap the twig for an improvised toothpick, maybe a fish bone or a sliver of reed, depending on what's handy and least likely to splinter. Your cousin once tried a tiny copper hook. He no longer has front teeth. The chew stick isn't your only option, though. Occasionally, a traveling merchant brings a bundle of imported cinnamon bark. Pricey, yes, but a single stick will last you a week. You once tried chewing tamarisk wood. It smelled nice, but gave you splinters in places splinters don't belong. Your neighbor, a scribe who thinks he's smarter than everyone else, insists on boiling his twigs in vinegar for optimal performance. He also believes his breath smells like figs. It doesn't. As you finish brushing, a group of kids passes by, laughing and pointing at a stray goat standing in someone's kitchen. You smile, and your gums bleed a little. Normal. Nothing a quick gargle with warm beer won't fix. You rinse your mouth at the trough, pat your face with a cloth that used to be a tunic, and head back inside to begin the day. Your teeth aren't perfect. They're worn flat from years of chewing sand-riddled bread, but they're clean mostly. And in a world where oral surgery involves a mallet and a friend with nerves of steel, clean is the best you can hope for. You chew slowly now, savoring the last bitter fibers of your makeshift brush before spitting them out into a cracked dish that doubles as your soap tray. There's a comfort in routine, even one that involves gnawing on twigs. You stretch again, one arm, then the other, and step out into the rising hum of the village. Chickens wander freely, a pig snorts somewhere in the shadows, and your neighbor is already yelling at his son for sneaking date cakes before prayer. You've got responsibilities today, mainly scribing a shipment record for a barley merchant who talks way too fast. But before your stylus even hits the clay, your teeth need a little extra polish. That's where the real magic happens. You head to a low table near your back wall where you've carefully laid out your tooth care tools. A handful of pale twigs, a pinch of pulverized ash, a smear of fig paste, and a dried sprig of sweetgrass tied with twine. High-tech, Mesopotamian style. It's less a dental kit and more a tiny apothecary of hope. The chew stick was a solid start, but this next part, the second round of cleaning, is your pride. You dip a damp finger into the ash and gently rub your molars, making slow circles. The ash is fine from burnt barley husks, and you swear it gives your teeth a faint shine. It also tastes like a fireplace, but that's part of the charm. Historians still debate whether this second round of cleaning was widely practiced or a habit of the upper-middle mud-brick elite. Some say it was ritual. Others think it was just something bored scribes came up with between contracts. Either way, your mouth is grateful. You rinse with a mouthful of river water filtered through linen. Yes, there's a risk of parasites, but you've built up an immunity, or at least a tolerance. You once read a contract about a man who sued his cousin for giving him worms through bad rinsing water. It was settled with 2 goats and a loaf of honey bread. Justice, Mesopotamian edition. As you prepare to head out, you glance in the mirror, by which we mean a scrap of polished bronze that reflects mostly shadows and wishful thinking. Still, you flash a smile. Not bad. A little crooked, sure. A little yellow? Definitely. But also not terrifying. That's progress. You sling your satchel over your shoulder, stylus tucked behind your ear like a misplaced feather, and step into the temple quarter where your scribe desk awaits. On the way, you pass a group of apprentices, brushing their teeth in tandem, chewing rhythmically like cows with an exam. One drops his twig in the dirt, picks it up, shrugs, and keeps going. Immune systems in Mesopotamia are something else. There's a market stall to your left, fresh onions, broken sandals, and yes, a new bundle of tooth sticks wrapped in palm fiber. You pause. These look good, thin, supple, dark wood. Imported, maybe, from the Zagros Mountains. You buy one. Your teeth will thank you. Your workday begins. You press wedge-shaped signs into wet clay, recording trades. Sheep for figs, pots for salt, bread for bread. That one's a weird barter loop. Occasionally you pause, pull out your new twig, and give your teeth a thoughtful nibble. It helps you think. The rhythmic chewing is meditative, hypnotic even. By midday, your jaw aches a little, but your breath still passes the fig test. If a fig doesn't shrivel when you exhale near it, you're fine. Fun fact, chew sticks, as primitive as they seem, will one day be recognized by modern researchers as surprisingly effective in cleaning plaque and freshening breath. Some modern toothbrushes will even be modeled after them, though most won't taste nearly as interesting. Your mother used to say that chewing the morning's twig with intention would please Ninkarak, goddess of healing. She also said it kept your teeth from falling out by age 30. You believed the first part, doubted the second, and lost your first molar at 27. Close enough. And here's a quirky detail most folks don't know. Some clay tablets from later periods show instructions for dental mixtures, like fig sap and vinegar, or powdered turtle shell and milk. Whether these were actually used or just the ancient equivalent of folk blogs is still debated. Scholars love arguing about this. Were they brushing for health or just being socially tolerable? Entire symposiums have been held on the topic, and none of them ever chewed a Mesopotamian twig. As the sun lowers and the city grows loud with trade and gossip and the occasional flute solo, you stretch once more. A long day of writing, chewing, spitting, and smiling. Your jaw may be tired, but your breath still respectable. You drag your feet home at dusk, clay still under your fingernails, your back reminding you that Mesopotamian chairs are just stones with ambition. The streets are quieter now, only a few stray vendors shouting about spoiled olives, and a priest scolding a boy for running near the sacred goat. You nod to both. No one nods back. That's normal. Back in your little home, you sit on the cool floor and take a moment to unwind. Your chew stick is now frayed and limp, so you toss it in the corner where old ones go to die. A solemn twig graveyard with vaguely minty air. You'll pick a new one tomorrow. For now, you lean back and close your eyes, but your mind wanders. You start thinking about your friend Tarsa, a fellow scribe who's always got an odd remedy up his linen sleeve. Once he tried rinsing his mouth with goat milk mixed with ash, claimed it made his teeth gleam like moonlight on the Euphrates. You visited him a week later, and he had a swollen jaw and a mouth full of regrets. Still, it reminds you, dental hygiene isn't a one-size-fits-all affair here. Everyone's got a routine, a family trick, a favorite flavor of twig. Some folks chew licorice root for sweetness. Others chew plain reeds, which clean nothing but give your jaw a workout. And then there's your aunt, who insists on rubbing her gums with salt each morning to keep the demons out. Historians still argue whether these practices were passed down through written tablets or simply word of mouth. Pun very much intended. You've never seen a dental manual in the temple archives, but then again, no one writes down things everyone already knows, except scribes, like you. You remember once seeing a merchant from the north, his teeth oddly white, perfectly even. Everyone stared. Someone whispered that he used crushed pearls as toothpaste. You're not sure if that's true, but he did have a very smug smile. So what exactly is in your community's oral hygiene playbook? Mostly local plants, meswak twigs, reeds, pine resin. Occasionally, burnt shells or ground charcoal. If you're fancy, you add a drop of fig vinegar or sweet sap from a tamarisk tree. And if you're reckless, crushed pottery. Just a pinch, supposedly for scrubbing power. It does scrub. It also removes your enamel permanently. Your cousin's wife once tried powdered oyster shell, said it worked wonders for her breath. She also lost 3 teeth and a chunk of her tongue. You assume the two facts are connected. There's also the mouth-freshening pastille, a kind of lozenge made from dried herbs and honey. Chewed slowly, it leaves your breath smelling like a garden and your tongue slightly sticky. A good trade-off, especially when visiting elders or asking for a raise. You reach into your pouch and pull out a palm-wrapped bundle, a gift from a friend in the South. Inside are tiny sticks of dried ginger root. You pop one in your mouth. It burns, but your breath, invincible. Oddly enough, scholars still debate how intentional these dental practices were. Did people understand germs? Probably not. Did they value fresh breath and strong teeth? Absolutely. In fact, certain contracts have been found that mention tooth health as part of marriage negotiations. A man once rejected a bride because she had 4 black molars and no central incisor. Brutal and specific. You once copied a love poem for a client, a smitten farmer who compared his beloved's smile to the light of Ninlil's lantern on a calm pond. Which sounds romantic until you remember Ninlil is the goddess of storms. Maybe he meant it in a good way. Anyway, the point is, teeth matter. Even now, even here, even when you're brushing them with a stick next to a goat. As twilight deepens, you step outside again. The sky is a velvet smear of indigo. A neighbor lights an oil lamp and mutters a quick prayer for her teeth. She's been using ground walnut shells lately. You nod politely and chew your ginger twig a little slower. The burn fades into warmth. It's oddly comforting. You head inside, place your ginger root on a clay dish, and settle into your straw mat. Tomorrow, you'll try a new twig, maybe one from the cinnamon man. Maybe you'll finally rinse with wine and clove like the temple guards do. But for now, your mouth is clean, your jaw is sore, and your heart is full of minty gratitude. The next morning, you wake up with your face smushed into a mat that smells faintly of barley and last night's dream. Your jaw feels surprisingly stiff, probably from all that ginger chewing, and you yawn wide enough to scare the beetle on the wall into a tactical retreat. Still, you sit up slowly, groaning like an old ox cart, and greet the new day with your standard Mesopotamian breath test. One puff into your palm, one quick wince. Yep, twig time. You fish around in your bundle and pull out a fresh Salvadora persica stick, bark still clinging to it like a shy friend. You peel it methodically, trying not to think about how many hands may have touched it before you. A good brushing wakes up the senses, clears the tongue, and more importantly, makes you slightly less unbearable to your colleagues. This time, though, you do something different. You decide to make a paste. You're feeling bold. You mix a bit of ground ash, left over from last night's hearth, into a dab of fig sap, and smear the concoction on the frayed end of your twig. It's gritty. It's slightly sweet. It looks like something a goat would sniff and walk away from, but you press it to your teeth and start brushing anyway. The taste? Not bad. Like molasses that's been through a chimney. The texture, though, is crunchy. You wince as a bit of grit works its way between two molars that have been enemies since your teenage years. Historians still argue whether the Mesopotamians made deliberate toothpaste, or if this was more like folk experimentation. Try enough sticky things and eventually your mouth feels better. But your method has precedent. A few cuneiform tablets from Nippur mention cleansing mixtures for the mouth, though the exact recipes are vague. One lists sweet tree water and dark powder of fire. Another includes root mash and river salt. Interpret that as you will. You rinse with water stored in a clay jug. Cool, slightly murky, but at least it doesn't smell like frogs. You gargle awkwardly, nearly choking, then spit out onto the street like a champion. A passing child claps. You bow slightly. Now that your mouth feels marginally more civilized, you head to the workshop. You've been assigned to copy some temple property records. Dull work, full of numbers and barley taxes. But there's something calming about pressing your stylus into wet clay. Repetition, rhythm, the kind of thing that goes well with fresh breath and a mouth that doesn't feel like it's lined in cobwebs. Midway through the day, your friend Tarsa drops by. He smells like goats and triumph. "Try this," he says, handing you a tiny pouch made from stitched fig leaf. Inside, black powder. Charcoal, he explains, grinning. Burned date seeds. Makes your teeth shine like moonlight on wet brick. You raise an eyebrow, but curiosity wins. You dip your twig's bristles into the powder and give it a go. Crunchy, slightly bitter. Smells like burnt cookies, but not terrible. You grin at Tarsa, and he nods approvingly. Cleaner already, he says, before vanishing around a corner. You continue brushing, gently this time. It feels like sandpaper and optimism. Not bad, not great. Your gums tingle. That could be a good sign or a warning. Historians, ever the cautious types, still debate the long-term effects of charcoal on enamel. Some argue it was helpful in moderation. Others claim it led to premature tooth loss, especially when paired with sandy bread and no understanding of floss. You reflect on your options: chew stick, ash paste, charcoal, fishbone pick, salt rub, all creative, all messy. None of them foolproof, but still your teeth are hanging in there. And in a world without dentists or anesthesia, that's a minor miracle. By evening, you're back home. The chew stick now resembles a wilted flower. You toss it into the twig graveyard and sit back with a handful of lentils, chewing carefully. No tooth cracks, no blood, no screaming. You call that success. As you settle into your mat, you hum an old lullaby your grandmother used to sing about a frog who lost his teeth in a fig orchard. It makes no sense, but it helps you sleep. You wake up before the sun, the air is cool and still, and even the goats haven't begun their usual chorus of existential complaint. You take a deep breath, habitually checking for morning breath, and wince. It's still there. Of course it is. 1,000 years from now, someone will invent mints. But today, you chew sticks and make do. You reach for a new one, thin, dark, flexible, the good kind. You picked it up from a traveling spice trader who claimed it came from a grove blessed by Enki himself. More likely, it fell off his donkey cart. Either way, it's yours now. As you peel back the bark, your fingers stiff from sleep, you wonder about the people who came before you, those ancient enough to be ancient to you. The Proto-Sumerians who first realized that chewing a twig from a certain tree made their mouths feel less cursed. What made them try it? Were they desperate? Curious? Bored? Historians still argue whether the use of chew sticks in Mesopotamia was independently developed or borrowed from older Egyptian practices. The evidence is murky, mostly inferential, and usually stuck between layers of soot and bird droppings. But your theory? Somebody chewed a twig once, got lucky, and told everyone at the next market. Thus, tradition was born. You start brushing, slow, rhythmic, no rush. The texture is perfect, soft bristles, but sturdy enough to hold their shape. The taste is earthy, slightly citrusy. You feel vaguely cleaner, like your mouth has been politely vacuumed. A nearby rooster crows. He approves. Today's plan involves errands. A quick stop by the healer's stall, your aunt needs more tooth oil, and then a visit to the potter's to pick up your replacement jug. The last one cracked when you tried rinsing with hot water. A mistake you'll only make 5 or 6 more times. At the healer's stall, the air is thick with herb smoke and debate. 2 women are arguing over whether licorice root is better than myrrh for gum inflammation. You stay quiet. You're here for the good stuff. The healer, an older man with too few teeth to advertise his own services, nods when he sees you. "The usual?" he asks, reaching under the table. He pulls out a small clay vial sealed with wax. Inside, an oily mixture of sesame seed oil, a hint of cedarwood, and a sprinkling of ground fennel. Tooth oil. You dab a bit on your finger and press it gently into your gums. Instant tingle. Pleasant? Like your mouth is being massaged by polite ghosts. This, by the way, is one of the most debated substances in Mesopotamian oral care. Some tablets refer to it as a mouth perfume. Others list it among the ritual anointments used by temple priests. Either way, it's multitasking, and you love a good multitask. Back outside, a teenager with a chipped front tooth asks if it'll grow back. You pause, consider the kind answer, then say, "Only if you chant to the moon goddess with perfect pronunciation." He looks terrified. You walk away. Your next stop is the potter's place. While waiting, you strike up a conversation with his wife, who, as it turns out, has fantastic teeth. White, even, just a hint of gap between the front ones. She credits her routine, chewing cinnamon bark, rinsing with warm date wine, and avoiding figs altogether. "Too sticky," she says, as if they were designed for sabotage. You nod appreciatively, then buy 3 cinnamon sticks from her personal stash. By mid-afternoon, you're home again, a bit sunburned, a bit dusty. But your teeth feel like they could host a diplomatic summit. You take a sip of lukewarm water, swish, spit. A neighbor scowls. You smile wider. There's something comforting about this, about knowing your breath won't cause emotional distress to strangers, about being part of a tradition that predates kings and conquests. Every chew, every rinse, every strange mixture of oil and bark, it all ties you to a story that's still being written. You hang the new cinnamon sticks by the window to dry. Tomorrow they'll be just brittle enough to use. You imagine the crackle as you bite down, the slight burn, the sweetness underneath. It'll be a good day. Evening settles across the rooftops like a sleepy cat, warm and heavy. You sit just outside your doorway, barefoot on the cool, packed earth, watching smoke drift from clay chimneys as the village winds down. Someone is playing a flute. Someone else is loudly arguing about lentil prices. And you, naturally, are brushing your teeth. Again. Yes, again. It's not that you're obsessed. It's that today's stew had something suspicious in it, and your tongue hasn't felt quite right since the 3rd bite. So here you are, chewing methodically on a strip of dried tamarisk, which tastes faintly like licorice and regret. A neighbor walks by and nods at your twig as if to say, "Good man, keep those incisors sharp." You nod back, mouth full, because you're polite like that. Here's something most people don't realize. Brushing wasn't always just for mornings. In some Mesopotamian communities, people brushed after nearly every meal, especially among scribes, priests, and anyone who spent time in close proximity to others' faces. The idea was less about hygiene as we know it and more about social courtesy. You don't want to smell like garlic when reciting a hymn to the moon goddess. It's bad form. Historians still argue whether this twice or thrice daily cleaning was common across all classes, or mainly reserved for the temple elite. There's some evidence that servants in noble households were tasked with cleaning not just rooms and robes, but teeth, often using their own fingers wrapped in linen. Imagine explaining that job at a dinner party. But back to you. As the tamarisk phrase, you decide to try something new. You retrieve a tiny bowl of crushed coriander seeds mixed with warm beer. It's a local blend shared with you by an elderly washerwoman who swears it drives out mouth demons and suitors who talk too much. You swish it gently, feeling the fizz and grit, then spit into the street, where it narrowly misses a lizard. He scurries away, deeply offended. Your teeth feel zingy, your tongue invigorated. You grin at no one in particular. The flavors used in Mesopotamian dental care varied widely by region. In southern cities like and Eridu, you'd find more date sap and palm oil mixtures. Up north, in Assyrian territories, they preferred bitter roots and herbs like anise and hyssop. Trade routes played a big part. If cinnamon arrived on a boat from India, you chewed it. If peppercorns made it past the desert, you boiled them into a gargle. Even chewing habits were seasonal. In dry months, people chewed resin to keep the mouth moist. In wetter seasons, you might add a bit of salt to combat mouth dampness, whatever that was. Probably just soggy gums. You finish brushing, toss the twig into your garden plot, and rinse your mouth with cool water poured over a linen strainer. It's not filtered in any modern sense, but it does catch the mosquito larvae. Usually, inside, your cousin is waiting. She's holding a tablet she wants help deciphering. It's old, brittle, and smells like mouse. But you're a scribe, so you nod and light the lamp. As you work, she absent-mindedly chews on a thin piece of date bark. You watch her, amused. She's doing it wrong. Too fast, too shallow, not enough rotation. You consider correcting her but decide against it. She'll learn, or she won't. Either way, her teeth are her business. The tablet turns out to be a tax record. Nothing exciting, just barley owed, sheep exchanged, a note about someone paying in spiced lentil cakes of questionable quality. You both laugh softly, and then she asks, "Do you think our teeth will last as long as this tablet?" You pause. It's a good question. Clay lasts forever, more or less. Teeth? Not so much. But you tell her what your grandmother always said. The tooth lives only as long as it chews with purpose, which is either very wise or complete nonsense. Hard to say. You give her one of your cinnamon sticks as she leaves, a peace offering, a breath freshener, a tiny act of oral care passed down through stubborn tradition and mild vanity. As you stretch and yawn, your mouth feels clean, if slightly gritty. Your jaw pops a little. That's normal. You settle onto your mat and think, maybe tomorrow you'll try that new sesame rind rubbing method the temple guards are raving about. Or maybe not. Some trends are best left to warriors. The lamp flickers, the crickets hum. You chew one last bit of bark, then let it fall from your fingers as sleep presses in, slow and warm as baked river mud. The next day begins, as always, with the sound of your neighbor loudly disciplining his goat. The goat, of course, does not care. You roll over with a groan, your jaw still a little sore from yesterday's coriander beer experiment, and slowly sit up. Your mouth feels strange, not painful exactly, just dry, like your tongue spent the night sleeping outside. You reach for your ever-faithful chew stick, now lying curled like a tired worm beside your mat, and decide, no, today calls for something more adventurous. You rummage through your storage basket, pushing aside lentils and a small chunk of clay shaped like a lion for reasons you no longer remember, until your fingers find what you're looking for: dried pine resin. You crack a piece off with your thumbnail and pop it in your mouth. At first it tastes like tree bark with delusions of grandeur. Then it softens, warming into a sticky, almost sweet gum. You chew slowly, methodically. This isn't about brushing, it's about sealing. See, you've got a little pit in your back molar. Barely noticeable, but every now and then something, lentils, goat hair, destiny, gets stuck in there and causes mild irritation. Chewing resin is your solution, a kind of ancient filling that doesn't involve drills or tears, just patience. Historians still debate whether Mesopotamians used resin for tooth repair or simply as mouth freshener. Some argue it was part of ritual purity, something to chew during fasts or prayers. Others point to archaeological finds of skulls with plant resin packed into cavities. Dental ingenuity, Bronze Age edition. Your resin chunk is working. You can feel it wedging into that molar like a determined little soldier. You chew slowly, letting it warm, then press your tongue against the spot. Not perfect, but better. You step outside, waving absently at a potter hauling a cart of misshapen jugs. The streets are dusty but lively. Market stalls open, children already screaming for dates and honey cakes. You head toward the temple quarter, where your friend Namu has promised to show you his new oral scraper. That's right, scraper. Turns out someone carved a flat bone tool, almost like a tiny spatula, meant for scraping the tongue. Namu swears it's the next big thing. Removes mouth sludge, he says, with the conviction of a man who once gargled onion vinegar for 10 days. When you arrive, he's already mid-scrape. It's intense. You politely decline a demonstration and inspect the tool instead. It's made from polished sheep rib, flattened at one end and curved slightly at the tip. Primitive, but effective looking. You give it a try, gingerly. It feels weird, like tickling your own taste buds with a popsicle stick. But after a few passes, your mouth does feel cleaner and slightly raw. Tongue scraping, historians suggest, may have emerged alongside early medicine. Some texts refer to removing the night breath or clearing the sleeping tongue, though it's unclear whether this was literal or metaphorical. Either way, your tongue is now awake, possibly alarmed. Namu offers you a sprig of mint soaked in barley wine as a chaser. You accept. It burns, but in a friendly way. By midday, you're back at your scribe bench, clay tablet in one hand, stylus in the other, resin still wedged in your molar like a loyal tenant. You record a grain shipment and a marriage contract, then take a moment to chew quietly. The office smells like oil lamps and ambition. You glance around the room. Other scribes chew too, twigs, resin, bark. One young apprentice is gnawing what looks like a cinnamon root while trying to solve a math tablet. The chewing seems to help. Either that, or he's thinking very hard with his jaw. Later, as the sun begins to lower and the smell of roasted onion wafts in from the street, you catch a glimpse of your reflection in a basin of water. Your teeth are acceptable, not perfect, not gleaming, but upright, mostly intact, and for Mesopotamia, that's practically glamorous. You rinse once more with warm, salted water, your own recipe, and let it dribble into a flower pot. The plant seems to like it, or at least it hasn't died yet. You spend the evening quietly, reading a clay tablet of ancient fables. One tells of a fox who tricked a snake by offering him a chew stick soaked in honey. The moral is unclear, but the fox had great teeth by the end of it. You chew your resin, scrape your tongue one last time, and lie down. Your mouth feels like it belongs to someone competent, someone ready for tomorrow. Morning arrives with a yawn, a sneeze, and the faint clink of a jug being dropped somewhere across the alley. You lie still for a moment, eyes closed, tongue exploring the interior of your mouth like a sleepy tour guide. The pine resin is gone, probably swallowed sometime in the night. The molar still feels filled, miraculously. The taste in your mouth? Neutral, bordering on dusty. A win. You rise slowly, stretch, and begin your now familiar ritual. Fresh twig, gentle chew, a touch of sesame oil on the gums. It's muscle memory by now, like breathing, but crunchier. Today's chew stick is a little different, thicker, and from a tree you don't recognize. A friend from the caravan route gave it to you, said it came from the East, though East could mean anything from the Zagros Mountains to the last hill before the sea. Still, It smells spicy with a hint of citrus. You sit in your doorway as you brush, watching the street come alive. Across the way, a woman scoops lentils into a cracked bowl while humming to her baby. Her husband stumbles out behind her, rubbing his jaw. Toothache, classic. He spots you, notices the twig, and wanders over. "You ever try scorpion ash?" he asks, too casually. You pause. Scorpion ash. Yeah, he says, scratching his stomach. Burn the tail, grind it up, mix with vinegar, rub it on the sore spot. Cures anything. You smile. Or poisons you quietly. He shrugs. Both are possible. You make a mental note not to take dental advice from men with missing canines. Still, it gets you thinking about the stranger remedies people used to combat dental pain before anyone really understood what a tooth was. To them, it was a tiny bone that went bad if the gods were angry, or if a demon crawled inside. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamians truly believed in the infamous tooth worm, or whether it was just symbolic, a convenient explanation for pain and rot. Some early tablets describe rituals to drive out the worm with heat and prayer. Others list medicinal recipes, onion juice, boiled mint, even mashed frog hearts. You're not planning to try that last one. In one particularly well-known incantation, a priest calls upon the gods to smite the tooth worm that gnaws the bone and drinks the blood. He then anoints the sufferer's jaw with crushed garlic and spits 3 times toward the north. Effective? Questionable? Dramatic? Absolutely. Back in your home, you light a small incense cone, just a nub of myrrh and dried herbs, to cleanse the breath, as the temple women say. It makes the air smell like old books and pine, comforting. Your tongue feels less swampy already. You spend part of the day helping your cousin with a legal document involving land rights and a disputed melon patch. While she recites clauses, she's also chewing a fresh licorice root. You watch her absent-mindedly and note that she's got excellent form, deep jaw movement, careful pressure. You nod in approval. She notices. What? Nothing, you say. Just proud of your technique. She rolls her eyes. You've become very strange since discovering chew sticks. You take it as a compliment. Later, in the temple garden, you help the herb keeper harvest fresh coriander and thyme. She tells you that young lovers sometimes chew thyme leaves before courtship meetings to sweeten the breath and calm the nerves. A clean mouth opens the way to a clean proposal, she says with a wink. You pocket a few sprigs for personal use. Before bed, you decide to try a blend she gave you. Crushed thyme, sesame oil, and a pinch of rock salt. You smear it on your gums and instantly regret it. Too salty, too sharp. Your mouth feels like it's been slapped by a flavorful ocean. You rinse twice. Not all experiments are successes. You switch to a cinnamon bark stick, your reliable fallback. Its warmth spreads slowly, soothing, grounding. You chew gently as you sit under the stars, the sky a soft purple quilt overhead. A bat flits past. Somewhere a child laughs in their sleep. You smile. Your mouth is tired, yes, but also refreshed, maintained, dignified. And for another night you'll rest knowing your teeth, those stubborn, grinding bits of enamel and luck, are clean enough to carry on the quiet tradition of care, bark, and breath. The morning sun seeps through the reed window screen, painting dusty gold lines across your mat. You roll over, stretch like a cat with a secret, and reach for the twig bundle tucked under the water jug. It's become a comforting habit now, almost like a ceremony, the choosing of the morning stick. Today your fingers settle on a slim, reddish twig with a subtle, spicy scent. Ah, yes, the imported kind, a gift from a merchant who owed you for copying a clay contract that saved him from a barley dispute. He claimed this twig came from a tree that only grew in soil kissed by 4 gods and 2 moons. You suspect he was exaggerating, but you appreciated the effort. You fray the tip with your teeth, then begin brushing slowly, gently, like you're coaxing the day into being. Your jaw moves in calm, repetitive arcs, and your thoughts follow suit, drifting back to a story your uncle once told. It was about a woman from the city of Ur who cleaned her teeth with ground pearl and goat milk. Supposedly, her breath was so sweet that bees followed her. The story ends with her being chased out of a vineyard by a swarm of very confused honeymakers. You always liked that tale, educational and alarming. As you spit delicately into the soil and rinse with water poured through a cloth filter, you think about how much has changed in your lifetime. As a child, you used whatever twig you could find, bitter, crooked, sometimes moldy. Now you're a man of refined taste. You own a storage basket just for dental sticks. Progress. You dress and head toward the temple library. On the way, you pass a group of children playing near a puddle. One boy is chewing on what looks like a sandal strap. You pause, horrified. "That's not a cleaning stick," you call gently. He shrugs. "It's chewy." You make a mental note to speak with his mother about basic hygiene. At the temple, a scholar greets you with a grin, 5 teeth, 3 directions. "I've found something," he says, excited. An old tablet fragment from Lagash mentions a ritual mouthwash for weddings. You both huddle over the fragment, reading the wedge-shaped lines as carefully as a poet reads silence. It says, "Before the joining of hands, let the mouth be washed with water drawn at moonrise, mixed with crushed lotus root and honey foam." Poetic. You imagine the couple sipping the sweet concoction and smiling shyly. A reminder that even then, people wanted to make a good first impression, at least from the neck up. Historians still argue whether such preparations were symbolic, medicinal, or just early cosmetic marketing. Whatever the intent, you like the image. Moonlight, lotus, a little rinse of romance. After your shift, you visit the market. A new vendor has appeared selling tooth powders in tiny clay jars. You ask what's inside. She grins. Ground fennel, charred plum skin, dried fish bone, and a drop of fig oil. You stare. Why fish bone? Texture? You buy one anyway. Curiosity is stronger than good judgment. That evening, after dinner, lentils again, with a suspicious crunch, you prepare your night routine. You scoop a fingerful of the powder, apply it to your brush twig, and begin. It tastes like regret and dried campfire. You power through. The fennel kicks in halfway through. Not bad, a bit like chewing an anise-flavored chimney. You finish, rinse with water, and dab a bit of myrrh oil behind each ear. Not for dental reasons, just because you like the smell. Your cousin says it makes you smell like a tomb. You say it smells like history. Before sleep, you chew one last cinnamon stick, savoring its warmth. The firelight flickers across your clay tablet shelf. Outside, frogs chirp near the irrigation ditch. The moon hangs like a slow breath in the sky. Your teeth are not perfect, but they're clean. They've survived gritty bread, fig paste, and questionable powders. They have served you in arguments, jokes, prayers, and kisses. You smile to yourself, cheeks full of cinnamon foam, and settle into your mat. The stick falls from your hand, still fragrant. Sleep comes gently. You wake in the middle of the night to a strange sensation, your tongue investigating something sharp near your back molar. Not painful, just suspicious. You lie there in the dark, listening to the slow breath of the village and the occasional crunch of a rat rearranging its life behind your storage basket. You poke the spot with your tongue again. A seed, maybe? Or a splinter from the cinnamon stick? You sit up, groggy but determined, and light a small oil lamp. Its glow is warm, flickering softly on the clay walls like the belly of a sleeping lizard. You reach for your emergency bundle. Everyone has one. Yours is a small cloth pouch tied with reed fiber, containing your nightstand of dental solutions, a spare chew stick, a bit of mint leaf, a small ivory toothpick gifted by a visiting priest with very few actual teeth, and your favorite, a little pinch of powdered, dried quince peel. Sharp, tangy, perfect for moments like this. You chew the mint first, slow and quiet. The coolness calms your mouth. Then, using the ivory pick with the precision of a man who once carved a love poem into a tablet the size of a bean, you gently pry at the molar in question. Success. A sesame seed, no doubt, from last night's flatbread. You place it delicately in a bowl you keep by the mat for former food guests, and sigh with satisfaction. The moment reminds you of something the high priest once said during a lecture on temple hygiene. A man who sleeps with a clean mouth fears no dream. You're still not sure what it means, but it sounds wise, especially at 3 a.m. Historians still debate whether nighttime oral care was a common practice or reserved for the unusually obsessive. There's not much direct evidence. After all, very few tablets say, brushed again because that stew had a weird texture. But the presence of worn sticks in burial sites, along with traces of plant resins near jawbones, suggests that some people took their dental rituals very seriously, even into the afterlife. You lie back down, chewing your stick like it's the world's slowest lullaby. The bitter wood calms your nerves. The sesame seed has been vanquished. You feel triumphant and drowsy in equal measure. In the morning, you're up with the sun again. The light pouring through the window is less golden today, more pale and shy, the kind of light that makes you want to sip warm beer and not speak for an hour. Your routine resumes. This time you prepare your morning stick with a bit of honey rubbed on the frayed tip. It's indulgent, yes. Sticky, absolutely. But also unexpectedly effective. The sweetness encourages saliva, and the stick gets into every crevice like a nosy ant at a family dinner. You chew and hum softly, then take your cleaning to the next level. The quince peel powder. You sprinkle it across your tongue like a tiny seasoning of alertness. The flavor is bright, sour, and floral, like biting into a lemon that once dated a rose. Your eyes water. In a good way. It's a strong start to the day. Outside, the street is already lively. The potter's wife is complaining about her husband snoring. A passing merchant is trying to sell blessed sand, which just looks like regular sand with confidence. And the boy who once chewed a sandal strap is now holding a chew stick. Progress. You make your way toward the market with purpose. Today's mission. Trade for more bark. Not just any bark. You've heard rumors of a shipment of cassia arriving. Stronger than cinnamon, darker, more aromatic. Supposedly, it makes your breath smell like temple incense. You need this in your life. You find the spice seller easily. His stall is modest, just a reed mat with several neat piles, but the scent is unmistakable, sweet, woody, and vaguely divine. You trade 2 small tablets and a dried fish for 3 sticks of cassia bark. A fair deal. You thank him, tuck the sticks into your sash, and walk home feeling oddly proud. A man with a good chew stick is a man ready for anything. At home, you try one immediately. The taste is bold. The texture, firm. It resists a little, like it wants to test your commitment. But you chew patiently, and it rewards you with waves of warmth and a feeling of gentle superiority. You spend the afternoon copying grain records, your mouth pleasantly occupied, your breath gently perfumed. You feel invincible. The cassia bark becomes your new obsession. By midweek, you've chewed through half a stick and developed a reputation in the scribe quarters for smelling like a festival. One apprentice even leans over your tablet and asks if you've been blessed recently. You nod solemnly. Let them wonder. You carve symbols in clay with renewed focus. There's a pleasant burn at the back of your throat from the cassia, like a soft warning from a polite fire god. Your jaw moves rhythmically as your mind wanders into that dreamy space between facts and fiction, numbers and names. And then, pop. Not pain, not quite, just a sudden startling awareness in your lower left molar. The cassia stick stops mid-chew. You touch the spot gently with your tongue. Loose, definitely loose. You stop everything. You've seen this before, your uncle's tooth gone after one hard bite of stone-baked barley bread. You remember the look in his eyes, betrayal, despair, and finally, resignation. He spent his remaining days chewing with one side of his mouth and blaming figs for everything. You don't want that to be your fate, so you head straight to the temple healer. He greets you with a nod, rubbing his hands on a rag that is probably older than your sandals. "Loose tooth?" he asks, even before you speak. Apparently, you have a face for dental emergencies. He inspects your mouth with a carved stick, peers in, makes a sound like someone stepping on a frog, and then nods again. Not bad. Could be worse. What now? You ask, mouth half open. Salt rub, clove oil, and silence. Let it rest. He hands you a tiny pot of clove-infused oil, thick and dark, smelling like every festival in one, and a bundle of sea salt wrapped in linen. You thank him even though he poked your gum harder than necessary. Historians still argue whether clove oil was a staple in Mesopotamian medicine or a rare luxury item reserved for upper classes. Some claim it came through trade routes from India. Others believe it was locally cultivated in secret herb gardens. Either way, it works. Within minutes of rubbing a drop on your aching tooth, the discomfort fades into a pleasant numbness. Back home, you sit quietly. No chewing today. The bark stays wrapped in its reed pouch like a retired athlete. Instead, you suck on a mint leaf, soft and cool, letting your molar nap in peace. In this state of semi-recovery, you remember the story of the silent merchant. Supposedly, there was a man who lost a tooth during a camel stampede and refused to speak for 3 months afterward, partly out of shame, partly to preserve what teeth he had left. His silence became legend, and people began visiting him just to sit near his powerful, clean aura. Some say he became a sage. Others say he just didn't want to explain the camel incident. You understand him a little now. You spend the rest of the day writing, not talking. A blessing, really. Words come easier in silence. Your stylus dances across clay. Your breath smells faintly of clove and salt. You feel like a healer and a poem. Even your cousin notices. "You seem calmer," she says. You nod slowly. Say nothing. Let the molar rest. That evening, you carefully rinse your mouth with warm water, steeped in chamomile and a pinch of ground coriander. It's gentle, floral, and vaguely magical. You spit delicately into the garden soil and thank the moon under your breath. You don't chew tonight. Instead, you crush a mint leaf and place it behind your lower lip like a promise. You lie on your mat in the quiet, your head full of clove and your jaw at peace. Outside, frogs croak in chorus. A breeze rustles the palm fronds. You run your tongue over the molar again. It's still loose, yes, but not angry, just cautious. You smile softly. You're learning, slowly, gently. The next morning you rise like a cautious deity, slowly, quietly, and favoring one side of your mouth. Your molar still feels tender but intact. The clove oil did its job, and you'd like to thank the trader who carried it across 2 deserts and one very nervous donkey. Breakfast is a dilemma. You eye the barley cakes on your table, dense, tough, studded with rogue pebbles. You decide against them. Instead, you mash some lentils into a soft paste, sprinkle in a little cumin, and eat delicately with a wooden spoon. You chew slowly, avoiding the left side like a treacherous riverbank. No chew stick today, not yet. But you do prepare a rinse. Warm water, pinch of sea salt, a dash of anise. You swish like a noble, spit like a priest at the end of a bad sermon. The garden absorbs it, unbothered. As you sit on your stoop with a cloth wrapped gently around your jaw, purely for drama, really, you think about how much oral care has defined your week. Some people worry about grain prices or temple politics. You've been locked in delicate negotiations with your own mouth. You're not alone in this. That afternoon, you visit the city archives to copy a legal complaint involving what else? A tooth. A young baker accuses a rival of sour breath so powerful it withered 3 customers. You chuckle softly. The judge ruled in favor of the plaintiff, awarding him 6 fish and exclusive rights to the market corner near the fig vendor. Breath matters. Historians still debate the seriousness of these cases. Some argue they reflect humor and exaggeration. Others believe breath, and by extension tooth care, was genuinely seen as a public matter, tied to morality, purity, and personal discipline. In some cities, foul odor could even lead to public penance. You wonder how they measured it, probably with herbs and dramatic gestures. While reviewing a scroll of old incantations, you stumble across one titled, "For the Closing of the Mouthworm." You read it aloud under your breath. "O worm of the root and gum, crawl no more in shadow or blood. Be sealed by mint and moon water. Be soothed by smoke and salted breath." Poetry, Mesopotamian dental poetry. You copy it into your own tablet collection, not because you believe in mouthworms, though to be fair, last night's lentil had some suspicious crunch, but because it's beautiful, ancient fear wrapped in rhythm and ritual. Back at home, you unwrap your jaw. The swelling has gone down, or maybe the clove oil is still doing overtime. You feel brave. You reach for a very soft, well-used twig. Not cassia, not cinnamon, just plain old softwood, familiar, gentle. You chew with reverence. You let it massage your teeth, not scrub. This is not about cleaning anymore. It's about connection to tradition, to survival, to the slow comfort of doing something your grandfather did, and his grandfather, and some tired farmer chewing twigs beside the Euphrates 3,000 years ago. You hum as you chew, an old lullaby about a donkey who lost all his teeth and had to eat porridge forever. It's tragic, but catchy. That night, you prepare a special blend for your mouth, myrrh resin steeped in warm water, filtered through cloth, cooled in a pot half buried in dirt. It smells ancient, earthy, like forgotten libraries. You swish and spit under the stars. Your cousin joins you on the stoop. "Still obsessed with your mouth?" she asks, smirking. "Always," you reply, tongue carefully avoiding the left molar. "It's a lifelong relationship." She laughs and offers you a date. You decline. Too sticky, too soon. Instead, you gnaw gently on fennel seed, stare up at the moon, and whisper a silent thank you to whichever god invented chewable trees. You wake up slowly, the kind of slow that only comes from dreamless, deep sleep and a jaw that didn't betray you during the night. You sit up cautiously, probe the formerly offended molar with your tongue, and, no pain, no movement, no lurking threat of dental mutiny. A fragile peace has been restored. Still, you're not going to test fate with cassia bark just yet. Instead, you choose a mild, well-soaked twig, a starter stick, as your grandmother used to call it. She always said you should begin each morning with something soft, something that doesn't bite back. You fray the end, dip it briefly in warm fennel water, and begin your slow, meditative chew. The act is soothing, rhythmic. You think less about cleaning and more about the comfort of tradition, like tracing your name in the sand just to see it disappear. After your brushing, you dress and head out early. Today is not for scribing or molar whispering. It's for assisting with a small archaeological dig just outside the city walls. They've uncovered a few graves, nothing glamorous, just the humble burial pits of everyday people, laborers, traders, maybe a scribe or two who never learned to hold their stylus properly. You arrive, greeted by dust, tools, and a surprisingly cheerful group of diggers. You kneel beside a shallow trench, and within moments your fingers brush bone, a jawbone. The teeth are still there, worn flat like river stones, stained slightly, cracked slightly, but there, intact, defiant in the face of centuries. You gently brush away the soil. Several molars have shiny residue, resin maybe, or the faint traces of some ancient sealant. The dig leader leans over, mutters, "Chew stick user, probably." You smile like someone who's just recognized a distant cousin. This is one of the quiet miracles of archaeology. Teeth are the last storytellers. Long after words fade from clay and paint vanishes from temple walls, teeth remain. They don't just tell you what someone ate, they hint at how someone lived, how they took care of their body, how they, quite literally, bit into the world. Historians still argue over what exactly we can learn from these remains. Were Mesopotamians exceptionally hygienic, or just lucky in their plant-based diet and obsessive chewing habits? Some studies suggest lower rates of tooth decay compared to later civilizations. Others blame the sandy flour for enamel erosion that no amount of brushing could prevent. You lean back on your heels, examining the jaw again. You picture this person, some nameless figure who once stood where you now stand, scraping bark with their teeth and spitting into the same soil you're now kneeling in. You wonder what their routine was. Did they use mint, salt? Did they chew alone or swap sticks with a sibling in a rush? Did they ever have a loose molar like you and treat it with clove or prayers? Later, the team uncovers a small ceramic jar near the skull. Inside, a grayish powder and a bundle of thread. The theory is it's a kind of mouth powder, maybe even an early floss. No one knows for sure, but it smells faintly of dried thyme and something else, something smoky. You press your nose to it and think of festival fires and old kitchens. Back in the city, you clean your hands, brush again, this time with your favorite cinnamon stick, and reflect on the day's find. You imagine generations of people brushing with sticks, chewing bark, rinsing with river water, quietly maintaining something that would one day outlast them all. That night, over a bowl of lentil stew, you tell your cousin about the jawbone. She listens, eyes wide. "That's what you want your teeth to look like?" she asks. "No," you say. "I want them to last like that." After dinner, you write a short poem on clay. Let me chew like my ancestors, soft bark, bitter root, patient jaw. Let me wear my teeth down, not with fear, but with care. You don't sign it. You don't need to. The brush strokes are enough. You chew your twig, lie back, and fall asleep, picturing all the unknown mouths that came before you, carving breath into the world with nothing but wood, water, and willpower. You wake with a peculiar resolve today, not just to clean your teeth, but to experiment. You've heard whispers from the herb market about a new mixture that promises teeth whiter than moonlit gypsum and breath gentler than priestly incense. You're intrigued and slightly suspicious. Your cousin, ever the enabler, brings you a bundle wrapped in waxed linen. "Try this," she says. "It smells weird. Inside is a soft, sandy powder. It shimmers faintly in the light and smells like dried basil, clay, and something smoky. You poke it with your finger. It has the texture of finely crushed brick." She explains. "It's a blend of dried date pits, charred eggplant skin, and a trace of silt from the sacred canal, because apparently sacred mud does something extra. You fray the end of your morning stick, an old favorite, soft wood soaked overnight in mint water and dip it gently into the powder. You bring it to your mouth and begin brushing. The taste is complex, smoky, earthy, slightly bitter, definitely unorthodox. But as you continue, it grows on you. The fine grit works its way between your teeth, polishing like 1,000 sand-sized scribes, smoothing your enamel with respect. You spit discreetly into the corner garden and take a deep breath. Your mouth feels antique in a good way. Historians still debate whether these regional mixtures were passed down by healers, invented by tooth-obsessed ants, or just happy accidents born of culinary experimentation. Some tablets mention recipes for mouth powders, but the lines between medicine, hygiene, and food blur quickly in Mesopotamia. If you can chew it, someone's tried brushing with it. You head to the archives, where today's work involves transcribing a merchant's records of spice imports from the East. Cinnamon, myrrh, even dried rose hips. Halfway through the tablet, you pause and chuckle. There it is, a side note. One basket of clove bark sold for use in mouth perfumes. You feel validated. Your friend Namu arrives not long after, proudly displaying a new tool, a tooth stone. It's smooth, oval-shaped, made of river-polished basalt. He claims it's used for buffing teeth to a shine. You raise an eyebrow. "You're going to polish your teeth like pottery?" He grins. "Why not?" He demonstrates, rubbing the stone gently across his front teeth like a man waxing a prize jug. You can't tell if it's working or if he just likes the sensation. You give it a try. It's odd, cold, comforting, slightly ridiculous, but strangely relaxing. You make a mental note to ask the potter for a smaller version, something that fits better against your molars. By afternoon, you've developed your own 3-step routine. Chew stick with powder, mint rinse, and a gentle pass with the toothstone. Your teeth feel practically royal. You even catch your reflection in a basin and admire your smile. Not bright, but calm, seasoned, the kind of smile a Mesopotamian librarian would trust. Later, while shopping for lentils, you hear 2 women gossiping about a neighbor who started rubbing garlic on her teeth to keep suitors away. One calls it effective, the other just sighs. You wonder if this counts as hygiene or strategy. Probably both. At dinner, your cousin asks if you've joined a priesthood. You smell like spices and judgment. You take it as a compliment. Before bed, you prepare a night blend, clove oil and rosewater, rub gently into your gums with a linen scrap. You chew a tiny twig dipped in honey, a rare indulgence, and lie back with a sigh. Your teeth feel quiet. That's the best word for it, quiet. Not demanding, not aching, not whispering threats of revolt, just present, content. You think again of that ancient jaw from the dig, the stories it carried, the centuries it endured. Maybe that person had their own evening ritual, some mixture of bark, prayer, and peaceful chewing. Maybe you're not so different after all. You drift off with the faint taste of mint and rose on your tongue, your jaw slack, your smile a small echo in the dark. The day begins with the sound of grinding, stone on stone, somewhere near the bread ovens. You roll over, yawn, and stretch your jaw. The molar, still calm, the gums, a little tender, but holding steady. You sit up and reach for your morning stick. Today's choice, olive wood, dried and lightly smoked. You fray the end with a practiced twist of your thumbnail and start brushing, eyes still half closed. Olive wood has a mellow flavor, slightly bitter but soothing. It's the dental equivalent of a morning hug from someone who respects your personal space. As you chew, you spot a small package by your doorway, wrapped in reed fiber and sealed with a thumbprint. A gift, apparently. You open it slowly. Inside is a bundle of spices tied with a silk thread and a tiny clay tablet no bigger than your palm. The inscription reads, "For the freshening of the mouth and lightening of the heart." A recipe follows: cardamom pods, dried lemon peel, crushed juniper, and a pinch of ground barley ash. Instructions say to steep it in warm water and rinse while facing east. You don't know who sent it, but you like them immediately. You prepare the rinse, sip cautiously. The taste is sharp, citrusy, and oddly nostalgic, as if someone boiled down the feeling of walking barefoot at sunrise. You rinse thoroughly, spit discreetly, and whisper a thank you to the morning. Historians still argue whether such ritualistic instructions, face east, use odd numbers of ingredients, rinse before speaking, were purely spiritual or tied to deeper cultural beliefs about balance, direction, and breath. Some claim these rituals were just polite traditions. Others insist they held magical or even medical power. You suspect it was a bit of everything. Later, in the temple market, you stop by a stall selling imported roots and oils. The vendor offers you something called lion's tongue powder, a mixture of dried ginger root, saffron, and clay from the upper Tigris. For bravery, he says, and for strong-smelling mouths. You buy a pinch. Not for bravery, you've already survived lentils, heartbreak, and sand in your socks, but for curiosity. Back home, you test it. You apply a small amount to your brush twig and scrub gently. The ginger hits first, warm, biting, almost spicy. Then comes the earthiness of the clay and the faint golden smell of saffron. It feels like your teeth just attended a royal ceremony. The aftertaste lingers, fiery and invigorating. You spend the rest of the morning copying a grain tax record with a strange sense of determination, as if your molars are helping you focus. At midday, a temple servant visits with a request, an inscription for a marriage gift, a clay tablet engraved with a blessing for the couple's health, happiness, and, surprisingly, fresh breath to welcome each new day. You grin. It's catching on. You take special care with the lines, carving each wedge like a soft drumbeat. When you finish, you blow the dust away and smile, the scribe's equivalent of minty freshness. That evening, you decide to make your own blend for brushing. You crush a few cardamom seeds, mix in some ground juniper, and stir it into warm sesame oil. You dip your twig and begin. The result is luxurious, smooth, fragrant, and subtly spicy. You can feel the oil coating your teeth like a warm blanket, sealing in calm and pushing out the last traces of stew. You hum to yourself a low tune from your childhood, something about a cow with golden hooves and a prince who never brushed and was doomed to chew stones forever. You finish brushing and step outside to let the evening breeze dry your thoughts. The stars are beginning to flicker awake. A neighbor waves with a sprig of parsley in his teeth. Everyone has their method. You sit in silence, chew one last mint twig, and feel your whole face relax. You're not just clean, you're restored. You wake to the sound of soft rain pattering against your clay roof, gentle, rhythmic, as if the gods are playing drums with silk. You stretch under your blanket, jaw loose, breath neutral. Progress. Rainy days in Mesopotamia mean two things: slippery courtyards and excellent water for rinsing. You rise, collect a bowl, and let the rain fill it drop by drop while you prepare your morning routine. Today's chew stick is from a date palm branch, tougher than your usual but soaked overnight in rose water. A small luxury. You fray it and start brushing, standing just beneath the eaves. The rain mists your face as you chew. The rosewater flavor is subtle, barely there, but the scent fills your nose with calm. You spit into a planter by the door, where a struggling sprout of coriander wiggles like it appreciates the attention. Later, in the temple workshop, you're approached by a traveling midwife. She's heard you're something of a chew-stick connoisseur, a title you didn't know you had, and asks if you've ever worked with crushed almond husk. Not directly, you say, already curious. She explains her method. The husks are dried, roasted slightly, and ground into a fine dust. She mixes it with clove oil and applies it to the teeth, using a bit of linen wrapped around her finger. It works wonders for swollen gums and makes your breath sweet enough for naming ceremonies. You ask if you can try. She laughs, hands you a folded bundle, and tells you to be gentle. It burns if you rush. You try it that evening. You wrap a linen scrap around your fingertip, dip it into the powder, and gently rub your teeth and gums. The texture is smooth, but the oil makes your tongue tingle. Clove, warm and assertive. You massage each tooth slowly, as if thanking them for staying in place all these years. The effect is remarkable. Your mouth feels clean in a way that's different from the chew stick, deeper, more direct. The kind of clean that comes with care, not just habit. Historians still argue whether finger brushing methods predate chew sticks or evolved alongside them. Some scholars believe finger-wrapped cloths were the first true toothbrushes, especially for women or healers working outside the priestly class. Others suggest the method was mostly used by caregivers, midwives, and nurses for treating children or the ill. Either way, it's precise and oddly intimate. You write down the method in your own records next to your growing list of blends, tools, and techniques. Your collection is becoming more than a habit. It's beginning to look like a manual, a quiet one, no boastful titles, just things that helped my teeth stay in my mouth. In the evening, you visit your aunt. She's always been skeptical of your routines, still brushes with charcoal and rinses with cold beer. But tonight she asks, "What do you use for soreness in the jaw?" You smile respectfully. You prepare her a rinse, chamomile petals, warm rainwater, a pinch of salt, and a dash of mint oil. She takes one sip, swishes, and mutters, "Tastes like a wedding." You take it as approval. After dinner, you sit with your cousin and chew cinnamon twigs together like monks in silent prayer. She's experimenting with anise now. It smells lovely, but reminds you too much of licorice gone rogue. You prefer your old standbys, softwood, sesame rinse, occasional rose, reliable friends for an unreliable mouth. Before bed, you try the almond husk method once more, this time slower, more deliberate. You massage each tooth like a sculptor finishing the final curves of a statue. Your tongue feels like velvet. Your breath smells like a baker who knows secrets. You lie down, jaw loose, mouth clean, heart full of odd gratitude. For trees, for spice traders, for rainwater caught in bowls. The chew stick rests beside your mat like a loyal tool waiting to serve again. You close your eyes, smiling softly into the dark. The next morning the rain is gone, but the ground still shines with yesterday's memory. The air is thick with the smell of wet clay, donkey fur, and roasted onions. You rise slowly, jaw relaxed, and immediately reach for your chew stick. But not just any stick. Today you reach for a gift. It's wrapped in dyed linen, a deep indigo, and tucked with dried lavender for scent. You received it yesterday from a visitor to the temple, a scholar from Elam, far to the east. She noticed your careful brushing, nodded approvingly, and handed you this curious parcel with a single phrase. "Use this after sweet things." You open it now. Inside, a bundle of sticks made from the wood of the haoma shrub. You've only heard of it in stories, sacred, rare, slightly bitter, supposed to cool the tongue and sharpen the breath. You fray the end. It's more fibrous than what you're used to, dense, almost springy. You chew slowly. At first, it tastes like wet bark. Then, slowly, something else, peppery, herbal, strangely clean. You feel like your mouth is standing in a forest, eyes closed. You keep chewing as you walk to the archives. Your molar, yes, that molar, has remained quiet for 3 days now. A record. Maybe the almond husk paste helped. Maybe it was the rest. Maybe it's just the way of the mouth, simmering down when ignored. At the archive, you're assigned a small collection of burial contracts, not glamorous, but revealing. One in particular catches your attention, a will from a widow leaving a bowl of mint oil and a bag of soft twigs to her granddaughter. You pause, smile. Someone else believed in oral care as inheritance. Historians still argue whether these kinds of bequests were sentimental or practical. Some say they reflect the symbolic passing of wisdom. Others think it was just about keeping one's breath tolerable at funerals. You prefer the first theory. You imagine the granddaughter unwrapping the twigs with reverence, just as you did this morning. Later that afternoon, you're invited to a healers' gathering, an informal event where scribes, herbalists, and temple assistants swap techniques. You bring your notes, your chew stick, and a small pot of almond husk paste to share. There's lively debate. One priest swears by salt water and cow's milk. A grain merchant claims roasted garlic cleans the tongue and keeps away meddlesome uncles. A midwife insists on basil leaf rubs for children with growing teeth. It calms the bite, she says, which sounds both literal and philosophical. You demonstrate your brushing method. Everyone watches, mildly impressed. Someone claps. A woman offers you dried plum bark in exchange for your recipe. You accept. It's community. Strange, slightly minty community. You walk home under a pink sky. The clouds are shaped like mountains drifting sideways. You chew the plum bark. It's soft, sweet, with a finish like raisins and old clay. Your gums tingle in approval. At home you rinse with warm rose water and fennel, then sit by the window. You look over your growing collection, sticks, powders, oils, notes carved in clay and scratched on bark. It's become something larger than routine now. It's history. A record not of kings and wars, but of bark and breath. And bark, it turns out, tells better stories. That evening, you light a lamp, unwrap a clean twig, and sit cross-legged on your mat. You begin brushing slowly, meditatively, eyes half closed. One stroke for the scribes of old. One stroke for the unknown jaw you uncovered. One stroke for your molar, still holding the line. You rinse, spit, breathe in, then lie back, hands folded gently on your chest, mouth clean, thoughts still. You think of the granddaughter and the mint oil. You wonder if someone, someday, will find your notes. Chew what you chewed, smile the way you do now, quiet, crooked, content. This morning, you rise with a question lingering in your mind. Are we brushing for health or just for habit? You chew on that thought as you chew on your stick, a familiar one today, sweetened overnight in barley tea. It's soft, smooth, and reliable. The kind of stick that doesn't ask questions, just does its job. You spit into your garden where your mint plant now grows with more confidence than it deserves. You sit by the doorway, still brushing, still thinking. The question haunts you a little, not in a dark way, just in that gentle, what if sort of way that floats through the back of your mind while the sunrise turns the clay walls to fire. You've been doing this routine for so long now. Chew, rinse, oil, maybe a powder or two. And you've started to wonder how much is working and how much is just inherited performance. Were your ancestors fighting plaque or just social shame? Historians still argue this exact point. Some say Mesopotamians cared about health, gums, breath, tooth strength. Others argue it was more about respectability, self-discipline, or spiritual cleanliness. Clean mouth, clean soul. Clean mouth, fewer curses. Hard to say. So today, you decide to test a theory. You go one full morning without brushing. A rebellion. You spend the morning as usual. A walk through the grain market, a stop at the temple to drop off some tablets, a conversation with a spice seller about a shipment of dried cloves gone mysteriously missing. But all the while, you're aware, acutely aware of your mouth. Every time you breathe, every time you talk, you wonder, do they notice? You try to smile less, speak more slowly, avoid standing too close. By midday, you can't take it anymore. You duck into a side alley, pull out your emergency twig, one you keep wrapped in a linen pouch tucked into your belt, and begin brushing like a man possessed. The flavor is piney. The shame is immediate. Relief follows. You spit, sigh, and return to society. Later, you confess your experiment to Namu, who listens, eyes wide, then burst into laughter. You lasted 4 hours, he says. I can't go 2 without brushing something. You feel validated, also mildly judged. That evening, you write in your personal clay journal, a compact tablet you keep for strange thoughts. I did not brush this morning. My breath turned me into a ghost. I am back among the living. You add a small drawing of a man with wild hair and a twig in his mouth, arms raised in dramatic salvation. Dinner is lentil stew again, with a side of something unidentifiable and crunchy. You eat slowly, chewing on your right side, still cautious about the old molar. It's stable, but you respect its history of rebellion. Afterward, you rinse with warm salt water and sage. The sting is sharp but familiar, comforting in its own herbaceous way. Then, as night falls, you go through your full routine. Brush with a cinnamon stick. Rub a dab of myrrh resin into your gums. Floss gently with a thread of horsehair. Yes, horsehair. Surprisingly effective. And finish with a mint leaf press behind the lower lip. You lie back on your mat and stare at the ceiling beams. You've come full circle, one missed brushing, and you're back to 3 steps deep in ritual, not just because your breath needed it, but because you did. The truth, you decide, is that it doesn't matter whether it's for health or habit. Some things are worth doing just because they feel like coming home. You wake to bird song, not the melodic kind, more like a feathered argument happening directly above your roof. Still, it's nice to be greeted by something alive. You sit up slowly, stretch, and immediately reach for your chew stick because yesterday taught you exactly how bad a single skipped brushing can feel. Today's stick is from the tamarisk bundle soaked overnight in lemongrass water. The result is light, citrusy, and a bit grassy, like chewing a poem written by someone who bathes too often. As you brush, a neighbor strolls by and nods approvingly. "Still chewing," she says, with the kind of affection normally reserved for houseplants and distant relatives. You smile, revealing a fleck of twig between your teeth. She doesn't flinch. That's Mesopotamian friendship. You chew and spit with a kind of reverence. This has become more than hygiene. It's meditation. Each movement clears your mouth, yes, but also your mind. You begin to understand why ancient temple texts described brushing not just as preparation for the day, but as the cleansing of the gateway. Later, while copying a property dispute tablet involving 3 goats, 1 broken wall, and an insult involving soup, you pause mid-stroke. Something clicks in your mind. You pull out your personal journal tablet and carve. The mouth is the front door of the soul. Clean it, and guests may linger. You feel very wise, possibly insufferable. That afternoon, you're invited to observe a healing ritual at the temple baths. A priest is treating a man with a swollen jaw and visibly throbbing cheek. You wince just looking at it. The treatment? Warm fig leaves, crushed barley paste, and a chant invoking Ninazu, god of healing and serpents. The chant is beautiful, soft, steady, rhythmic, and as it echoes through the damp space, you notice the man relaxing, even smiling. Whether it's the barley or the belief, something shifts, and you realize sometimes the cure doesn't need to make perfect sense. It just needs to feel like care. Historians still argue about this blending of ritual and medicine. Was it all superstition? Or was there a deeper understanding of how attention, rhythm, and intention can soothe pain? You think back to your own molar and remember how your cousin's almond paste worked better after she sang a little tune while applying it. You walk home slowly, the scent of hot herbs still lingering in your cloak. Before dinner, you rinse with lukewarm clove water, chew a soft licorice root stick, and carefully run a linen thread between your teeth. The thread catches on something, fig skin probably. You remove it with quiet satisfaction. Victory, however small. Dinner is bread and stew. You chew carefully but confidently. Your molar doesn't complain, it's come to an understanding. Afterward, you sit beneath the stars and listen to the soft hum of the city settling. You think about the countless mouths brushing across the land, nobles with gold-handled scrapers, merchants with cinnamon twigs, children chewing mint stems just because it tastes funny. You're part of that quiet, invisible rhythm, a lineage not of warriors or kings, but of chewers, of rinsers, of those who greet each day with a twig and a prayer, spoken or not. You clean your teeth one last time before sleep, tamarisk with a drop of sesame oil, then lie down, jaw loose, lips slightly parted. You dream of soft bristles and sacred herbs, of twigs, temples, and the silence that comes when your breath is clean and your story has been gently told. The final morning comes quiet and pale, with a soft mist hanging just above the rooftops. Even the goats seem subdued, as if sensing the gentle end of something. You sit up slowly, bones crackling like old parchment, and reach for your last chew stick in the bundle, olive wood, aged, and carefully wrapped in a piece of dyed linen. You unwrap it like a relic. This one's special, not because of its flavor or rarity, but because it's the last of the batch gifted to you by that Elamite scholar. A parting gift with a fading scent of frankincense. You fray the end slowly, almost ceremonially, and begin your final morning brush. Each chew is deliberate, unhurried. The flavor is woodsy, clean, and familiar. You close your eyes and count your breath. You chew like you've been taught by time itself. After rinsing, you sit in your doorway, holding the stick loosely in one hand. You think of every jawbone you've seen, every odd powder you've tried, every odd look you've gotten from friends who thought your obsession a bit much. But then again, your teeth still live in your head. That counts for something. Midday finds you walking through the old reed quarter, delivering a small basket of chewing sticks, bundled, labeled, and dipped in dried mint oil, to a young apprentice who just lost his first baby molar. He looks up at you wide-eyed, asks, "Will this make me strong?" You smile. "It'll make your breath bearable. That's a kind of strength." He nods like you've revealed a secret, and for a second, maybe you have. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian dental care was born from necessity, superstition, or something else entirely. But as you walk back through the city, you realize it was about dignity, not survival, not beauty, just the quiet belief that your mouth, this strange, squishy doorway to your thoughts, deserves to be honored. Back home, you sit at your workbench, your notes and samples spread before you. You've carved recipes into tablets, labeled powders, notched sticks. You've created something that's not quite a book, not quite a ritual, but something close to both. You light a lamp and press your seal onto a final tablet for the health of the mouth and the memory of those who chewed before. Later, as the sky turns gold, you chew one last cinnamon stick, not for cleaning, just for the warmth. The scent drifts like prayer. You lie down. The city is quiet. Your breath is clean. Your teeth are tired, but proud. You smile into the soft hush of night and let your jaw slacken as sleep drapes over you like a patient robe. And now, here you are, back in your own room, perhaps, or maybe still walking those soft Mesopotamian streets in your mind. The lamp is dim, the last chew stick has been set aside, and your jaw, like your thoughts, is finally ready to rest. Let it all fade now. Let the spices and the smoke, the hum of the market, the clatter of styluses against clay, all drift gently into silence. The taste of mint, the warmth of sesame oil, the feel of frayed wood against your teeth, those are stories now, gentle stories that live just long enough to help you drift off. You've walked through a world that believed even the smallest rituals, like brushing your teeth, were sacred. You've met healers, merchants, scribes, and quiet grandmothers with jars of dried bark and powdered thyme, and in doing so, you've remembered something, that even in the ancient dust there was care and calm and the soft insistence of daily dignity. So rest now. You've earned it. Let your breath slow. Let your tongue lie still. Let the molars dream of clean twigs and fig-scented prayers. Nothing else needs your attention tonight. Sleep is here. Let it come. Let it stay. Let it carry you gently into the dark.